Hi guys, we're going to do applications of quadratic and related theory, solving equations and inequalities. In lecture one, we'll cover a variety of topics, probably 8 to 10 topics. The first three are shown on the board. We'll start off solving using factorization. So let's take an example, x squared minus x is equal to 12. We're going to do one using the formula. So I've got x squared minus 6x plus 6 is equal to 0. And then we're going to do completing the square. Now for this, I've selected two examples. So the first one is x squared plus 8x is equal to 4. Okay, so let's get going with part A using factorization. With quadratic equations, we want all the terms on the left side. So the plus 12 becomes a negative 12 on the left. When we factorize, we're going to end up with two brackets equals to 0. X times x will give you x squared, which is the first term. And negative 4 times plus 3 will give us negative 12. And of course, negative 4x and plus 3x will give us negative x. This means that the factors are correct. So the first factor is equal to 0, or the second factor is equal to 0. That shows us that x equals plus 4 or x equals negative 3 as our final answers. So that's a very useful method to know, tested often in exams, especially in the last year or two of your schooling life. Using the formula, so here we'll see the coefficient of x squared, we call that a, the coefficient of x is b, and the coefficient of the constant term, or simply the constant term, is c. So a is positive 1, you can't see that. B is equal to negative 6, and C is equal to positive 6. The formula simply says that x is equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. You'll see when we study nature of roots, the quantity under the square root sign, which is b squared minus 4ac, is called the discriminant. We will study the discriminant extensively. Coming back to this problem, x is equal to negative b. So notice the use of brackets, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 into a times c. And show your square root sign covers the entire discriminant, all divided by 2a. So that's 2a is positive 1. So this will simply give us x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of, so that's 36 minus 24, giving us 12. All of that will be over 2. Now, we can write the answers in surd form, which the examiner could ask for. So in which case, it would be 6 over 2 is 3. And the square root of 12 over 2 should be square root of 4 times 3, which is 2 square root 3 divided by 2, giving us square root 3. Or x is equal to 3 minus square root 3. The examiner could also ask for the answer in decimal places. So note the instructions in exams and whether you want 1 decimal place, 2 decimal places, or 3 decimal places, or any other instruction that's given. So let's solve this using decimal places. So I'm punching this into a calculator. Just check the answer in decimal format. So 3 plus square root 3 gives us 4,73. So that's 2 decimal places. And the other answer 3 minus square root 3 will give us 1,27. Those are our two answers. So I'm just going to underline them out. All right, so let's go now to completing the square solving equations, quadratic equation in particular, by completing the square. So here we could leave the plus 4 on the right side. Note the coefficient of x squared is positive 1. The coefficient of the x term is 4. The crux here is that we want half of the coefficient of the x term, which is plus 4, and we'll square the 4, add that to the left side and the right side of the equation. So in other words, we've got that. We take half the coefficient of 8, which is 4. 4 is plus 4, put that in a bracket, square it, add it to the left and add it to the right. So if we've added the same quantity to the left and right, the equation remains balanced. Now, note that the x squared and the 4 squared provide the trigger for your factors for the left side, which are simply x plus 4 into x plus 4 or x plus 4 all squared. You can FOIL this out, as it were, expand this to indeed check that the factors on the left are right, are correct. And 4 plus 4 squared is 4 plus 16, which will give you 20. So we've got a squared quantity equals 20. We'll remove the square by simply square rooting the left, and we'll square root the right. And when square rooting the right, it gets a plus minus sign. So the left simply becomes x plus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 20, which you know is square root of 4 times 5, which will be plus or minus 2 square root 5. So let's just check that using our calculator. Square root of 20, indeed it's 2 square root 5. Now let's move the plus 4 to the right side. So we'll get our two answers. Negative 4 plus 2 square root 5, or x would be negative 4 minus 2 square root 5. Once again, the examiner could ask you for the answers in terms of decimal points. So let's say this time they asked for 4 decimal points. Let's see if we all get the same answers. So it's negative 4 plus 2 square root 5. And that will give us to 4 decimal places, 0,4721. Or x equals negative 4 minus 2 root 5. Punching that into a calculator to 4 decimal places, I get negative 8,4721. Quite interesting that the decimal points are identical. So here's our first answer and the second answer. So thank you, guys. We will catch you in the next lecture.